this meeting of the Board of Selectmen, November 9, 2015. First item on the agenda is review and approval of minutes, which are none to be approved at this point. Item 3 on the agenda is confirmation of future meeting dates. Right now we have the 17th and 23rd. Do you want to book any more out beyond that? Or?
December 1st and 15th.
Do you want to, are you looking to keep to your scheduled first and third Tuesdays, Mr. Chairman, or do you want to have a discussion of meetings for December?
First and third are fine with me. That would be December 1st and December 15th. Yeah, obviously you don't want to do one on the 22nd.
No. I think for the month of December that probably makes sense, but that's really not our schedule. We switched to 3 meetings a month.
Yeah, I know.
Because of the...
I mean, you could potentially do one on the 29th if you wanted to, for a third.
You could do it the 1st, the 8th, and the 15th.
3 in a row? It's okay with me.
Yeah, that would work for me. I mean, I don't have a problem with that, unless you wanted to spread it out to the end. But I could do those 3 in a row.
Okay. Yeah, let's do that. That way we don't run to Thanksgiving, New Year's and Christmas.
Sure.
Okay, item 4 on the agenda is approval of payroll and vendor warrants.
Can I make a motion to approve the current payroll and vendor warrants?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all's in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. Item 5 is citizen speak. Anybody that wants to address the board? Seeing none, we'll move on. Item 6 is approval of the information technology budget. I think we have Jim Scory out in the audience. Come up and join us, Jim. It really doesn't look like a lot of changes in this budget, really. It's just pretty much a roll forward.
Yeah,
you've got a little bit of extra stuff in the contingent.
For the most part, the increases were basically the contractual obligations, and they weren't that much. And I have a small amount in salary. The assistant's position had a step increase, and then obviously the longevity. But that's basically it. And as far as the contingent budget, the extra monies would basically go towards equipment, computer equipment.
Yeah, okay. Have we started trying to replace the computer equipment? Or?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's been an ongoing thing that we do. Yep. To try to keep everything fresh.
3 to 5 years or something like that?
Yeah, a little sooner, 3 to 4, yeah.
Okay. See, the only other question that I have, and I'll find out if anybody else has any, we're going to new software, new accounting software, and the old accounting software is coming off. Has that been factored into this?
Yes.
It has?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, we have three modules on the new for the soft rate, which is the accounting, the treasury piece, and the what's the third piece? The accounting, the treasury, and
Utility?
no, that's
Payroll?
Payroll. I'm sorry. Yeah, payroll.
Okay.
And I mean, everything's on a go for that. Obviously, we got the contract squared away. That went off to a seller for signature.
Okay.
So we should be getting that back shortly, and we're good to go. We're on track for all of the deadlines that we've set.
Okay. And the licensing fee is similar to the maintenance?
It is. Yeah. Yeah. The only thing that we're doing on the software contract is the hosting fee, because it's cloud-based.
Right.
So there's a $5,000 hosting fee for that.
Okay. Annual?
Yeah. Annual, yeah.
Okay.
So that's all factored into the pricing. And like I said, we're on track. We'll be doing the biweekly payroll. Excuse me, biweekly payroll January 1st, and we're in the process of getting all the email addresses coordinated with the Social Security numbers, so everyone will be able to go online to get their pay stub.
W-2s and everything else?
Yep.
And,
Well, the pay stubs.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, most of the systems you're able to get your W-2 at the end of the
Pardon
year.
me?
Most of the systems you're able to get your W-2
Yes.
as well if you
Yeah.
want it. Yeah.
So that'll all happen the end of December, 1st of January. So, you know, that's a big undertaking. We're trying to go through all of the people that we have here, the ones that have email addresses, the ones that don't. I would say 90% of the people do have townofmilton.org, or they have mpdmilton.org at the police, and the library, they're OCLN. So they're all set. So the ones that we have to acquire are the seasonal workers and any part-timers that, you know, have very few hours.
Yep, just don't have a town of Milton.
Exactly.
email.
So I'm going to give everyone in the town a townofmilton.org account.
Okay.
To make it simple. And then if they choose to down the road, they can then go to the treasurer's office and give them a private email address if they want.
Okay, otherwise they can just use that.
Yeah, if they've got a Comcast or a Google or a Gmail, any of those types of addresses, they can change it if they want.
Okay, so how's the system going to work? It's actually going to be email? The pay stub is going to be
Yes, yeah.
As opposed to going to
the
a,
treasurer, we're working with the current software vendor to get a third-party vendor involved here, which will process the emails, and then that will get sent out to people's addresses. And then what they will do is, on the town side, if they choose, they can go to any computer, home or here or whatever, and they'll access it through Outlook Web.
Yep.
Similar to what you folks do with the agenda.
Sure.
So they can do it that way. And like I say, if they choose, they can sign up to do their own.
Okay. So there won't be a secure website where that stuff is...
Well, on the town side, it will, you know, because it will be all, you know, through our system. If they choose to go private, then, you know, they're on their own as far as any security that, you know, concerns that there might be. But I don't think there's, you know, a great concern. You know, our networking folks, GDS, Global Data System, they're like, yeah, they should be okay if they use their own accounts. So,
Yeah. And typically there's no personal information. They only show them the last 4 digits of the
right,
social.
right.
You know, show
So
them
it's
the
just a
social.
matter, we might have to go around and, you know, teach some of the folks that don't understand the Outlook Web. You know, we'll give them links on the website. So all they have to do is click on that, and we'll take them to, you know, mail.townofmilton.org, and then all they'll have to do is put their username and password in there, and it will take them right to the site.
Yep.
And then I believe Jim McAuliffe is going to be sending out paper copies for like 2 weeks, just so they'll have a comparison. So they'll have the paper to look at, go to the website, check it out, make sure all the data is correct, and then after I think it's the second or third, he's going to end that, and then they'll basically be on their own.
Okay, good.
So
Good.
it's a big undertaking, but, you know, it would be more efficient. And then we get the new software, you know, coming on board, so hopefully their solution down the road will be a portal, so we won't need them to go to the Outlook Web.
Right, right. That's the typical...
Yeah,
configuration.
currently they don't have the portal scenario, but they said they will have it eventually. So I'm hoping maybe by the time we go on board with them, they'll have it in place. I'm thinking that the software that we're going to be using temporarily will interface with their system. So it should be seamless.
Yeah, okay.
That's great. No, the only question I had was about the software program, whether that was factored in. And Tom,
Yes,
I heard
it is.
That's which
yeah.
is great.
And you were telling me you're
Yeah,
familiar
I
with
use that
software.
in Westwood, and it's an incredibly efficient program.
Oh, good.
And I
That's
think
good
that
to
you
hear.
guys
Yep.
will really enjoy using it, and I think your departments will have a lot of success with it. I think it's
Good,
gonna be
because
very
all the conversation I've had with Kevin Adolph, he's the CEO of the company, has been positive. And the same goes true for WTI. Rob Raymond, he's worked with the town for over 30 years, and we're still going to be using a piece of his software, the Zobrio Cash Management, that's going to interface with the financials on the software side.
Good.
So I think between the two of them, they should work out very
That's
well.
great.
Yeah.
Any other questions? We got a motion before us if somebody wants to.
Yep. Okay, so I will make a motion to approve and forward to the warrant committee the FY 2017 budget for information technology in the amount of $469,079 for a contingent budget and $449,079 for a non-contingent budget.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all's in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. Thank you, Jim.
Thanks,
very
Jim.
much.
Appreciate it.
Okay, now, next on the agenda is the approval of the fire department budget, and Chief Grant's here. Hey, Jack.
Good evening. Good evening.
Evening, Chief.
Hey, Jack.
How are you?
Good. Okay. So kind of the same thing, there's not a lot new here, other than you've got a new lieutenant position under the contingent budget?
We do, yeah, and quite honestly, that's really the only change.
Right, other than some minor tweaking of general expenses on the contingent, but...
Yeah, very minor on the general. I believe there was, a $2,000 tweak in the fuel and a $2,000 tweak in public safety.
Okay.
Which really goes to the medications that we're carrying on that line.
And just tell us that the new lieutenant position is coming on?
The new lieutenant position, really, it's an existing position, but it exists part-time at this point. It would be a shift of the training officer from a part-time position to a full-time day administrative position.
Okay. So that would be totally administrative, it would not be on a...
No,
It would be both.
it'd be a combination
Yeah.
of both, as fire prevention as well. It actually is, in that regard, is nice in that if you've got some sort of an incident that takes place during those day hours, you've got 2 extra
A little
bodies.
more manning, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, so it does come in handy in that regard.
Yeah.
Okay. Any
So,
questions?
Chief, I don't know if you heard the financial presentation that the town administrator and
I have
Amy
not
Dexter
seen
and Glenn
that.
Pavlicek
I
gave
had a
last
little
week.
conversation with Amy, but I haven't seen the program.
And obviously, that's a forecast, the specific budget numbers. Well, it did include you did include the position, so although
Yes.
it's
And then
different than the
it's-
budget, it does include the lieutenant position, as well as other new positions that a lot of other departments requested, and that turned out to be a very large number. So whether or not the contingent budget would be able to absorb some of these new positions is,
Right.
as you know, it's an open question.
Absolutely.
Right.
But I guess, so this would be the 14th lieutenant.
This would bring it to 14, yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess you answered my question through the question.
So essentially we're
with
going from
Tom.
13 and a half to 14.
Yeah,
Well, yeah. It's current, like I said, the training position now is currently a shift lieutenant who's paid a stipend to pick up the extra work.
Okay.
and how much training would be involved? What
We
kind of a
actually-
component, what percentage of the time?
We shoot to train every day, and really what it would give you a huge improvement in the quality of the training, because you've got that one set of eyes watching what each group is doing, so they're all training the exact same way. So as it currently sits right now, he'll assign in-service training, which is, basic stuff that we do on a relatively, routine basis. He doesn't come in and supervise that training. If it's some of the larger stuff that we're doing, he'll physically come in and work with each of those groups. We do that probably, 4 times a year, 4 or 5 times during the course of the year. And then, like I say, it's mostly assigned in-service training that they do on their own. But if you stand on the outside and watch that, it's going to be different, depending on, what groups are working and what the personnel are, and, there's fluctuations in the quality.
So the 4 or 5 times a year training, is that obviously that's much bigger,
That's the
major
larger
projects
stuff,
or
yeah.
major firefighting aspects?
But these are day-to-day,
These
we're
are,
working
well,
on.
even the other are day-to-day, but they're, bigger events, in that we just don't have the budget to, bring people in on overtime to do it. A good example, and I was going to mention it in the quarterly report, towards the beginning of the summer, the Falcone properties, the two families that were coming down to create the parking lot, they were kind enough to let us utilize those. So we went in and we did some search and rescue training. We did some rapid intervention training, which is basically operations to go in and save one of our own people who get in trouble. And we also combined all of that with incident command training as well. So very valuable. But, you know, you really need that extra set of eyes out front to run that stuff.
And that in itself was a very big training project, so that's not even the sort of thing, for the 4 to 5 times a year, you're probably talking about something even smaller than that.
We're talking even smaller, yeah.
Yeah.
You know, like I say, to have that set of eyes and that repetitive, everybody training the same is, put it this way, before we went to this position, we just kind of assigned it without eyes, so it was very scattered. Bringing this position in has improved it dramatically, and going to that full-time days would, you know, just be a home run. It brings you all the way.
And you have that extra person on, should anything happen.
Yeah, yeah.
So I see it bringing a lot of value to the
Oh,
department.
it's a tremendous amount of value. You know, there's a lot of multitasking you can do in there as well.
It sounds like there's a supervisory component to it as well.
There's absolutely supervisory. It's one of those things where, you know, like I say, he's that one set of eyes that, A, he's going out and taking the training himself and then dispersing it to everybody else. So he's the expert. He's the subject matter expert, basically.
Okay, thank you.
I do have a question. Looking down the detail of your personnel line item, some of the things are obvious, you know, obviously, you know, on the contingent budget, training will go up because you got a full-time training officer. You know, vacation or paid holiday goes up because you got another person. Can understand that. Overtime, though, why does overtime go up by 25 grand on the contingent budget?
Because we're underfunded as we speak.
Okay.
It's one of those things where, yeah, the set aside from the last settlement,
Right.
we put a good amount of that into overtime to bring us closer. But if I took an average of the last 6 years, and religiously we are, you know, 50% underfunded. And the difference between where we are and that $25,000 pretty much puts us on level ground where we need to be.
Okay. Okay.
Chief, just back to the training, will the lieutenant be doing also medical response training, that sort of thing? 'Cause that's a big component of what the fire department does, is respond to emergencies in addition to fires.
Yes.
Will they be doing some types of training on that?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we do that. Matter of fact, they're training tonight on EMS. So he would be coordinating that as well. He wouldn't necessarily be teaching some of it.
Fallon does a lot of that.
Yeah, I wasn't thinking so much
Fallon's
EMS,
is,
but,
yeah.
you know, getting the jaws of life to open the cars in a car accident. Not so much the medical piece of it, I was thinking more the rescue piece.
Oh, yeah, yeah, no, that's...
That would be
is a-
part of this new position job.
You're stealing my quarterly report completely. That's one of the other things that, one of the new pieces of equipment that we just put on board. I'm not sure, we ordered it, you know, right at the start of the year, so when it came in, but they just, within the last month or so, completed that. We've got stabilization stanchions that if the car's on its side or over on its roof, or, you know, you can stabilize it so you can get in there and work. So we had all 4 groups in, and that was one of the ones that he came in off duty and supervised. So you're stabilizing the car and then you're cutting it up. We do that multiple times a year.
Okay.
We'll, you know, habitually we'll do that when the weather breaks and before it gets cold again. So, you know, they'll do a round of auto extrication in the spring and again in the fall.
Great, thank you.
Do you have anything, David?
No, I think he's answered just about Jack. He did a good job. I appreciate it.
One other question, Jack. PD what is PD buyback?
Personal day buyback.
Okay. Well, why did it go up so much from 2016?
I knew that question was going to come up, and I would have put it on you to ask it, Tom. That's one of those, it's a contractual obligation. It's one of those things where they're allowed to sell their personal days back, so we really have to account for it. It habitually does not happen. that everybody does buy them back. So it's one of those.
So that's under the assumption that
things-
everybody does.
Yeah, and it's
Okay.
one of those things as we've really tightened up in the last couple of years that we've had to steal from, which is why you see it down so low. So it's just an effort to put it back where it's supposed to be.
Okay, okay. I have no other questions, so.
I don't either. Okay, so I'll make a motion to approve and forward to the warrant committee the FY 2017 budget for the fire department in the amount of $5,494,146 for a contingent budget, $5,374,686 for a non-contingent budget.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all's in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Okay, Jack, now your quarterly report.
The quarterly report, other than the numbers that sit on the table, I've pretty much just given you.
Okay.
And numbers-wise, you know, it really was a relatively routine quarter. No, you know, no incidents to speak of that were, you know, realistically noteworthy.
Okay.
It's pretty similar to your other reports, so nothing too unusual.
Yeah, like I say, they're not,
Yeah. The bulk of them are medical emergencies and rescues.
yeah, and, you know, I think there's just over 1,300 runs for the quarter. So I'm sure that will bring us in, you know, right around the average.
Is that about your average?
You know, I didn't compare it quarter to quarter, but for the year, we're right up in the 3,800 to 4,000 range. So, you know, if it continued like that, we'd be high, but I suspect it will level out some of the quarters. And there's a pretty long history of coming in right in that, you know. I think the low is 37 something and the high that I've seen is 42. So we stay right in that block.
So we've been pretty fortunate with building fires, just 2, and minimal damage.
Yes, the two that, the last major that went multiple alarms would have been in the first quarter. Matter of fact, it was a couple of weeks before the zip trip. It was discussed on that segment. That was the last multiple alarm fire. We've had a couple of, you know, some things that were held to, you know, to one room, knocked down pretty quick.
Was that the Central Avenue or the Elliott Street? It was one of the...
No, that one was up on Annapolis Road.
Wow.
Central Ave was actually, it's probably over a year ago.
Wow, it's amazing.
Time does go by.
Okay. Okay, any questions?
Nothing else
No,
for me?
nothing else
No?
from me.
All set.
Great.
Thank you, Jack.
Thank you very much.
Thanks so
Have a
much.
good night.
You
Have
too.
a good night.
Put it on. I forgot to take it out.
It's a new system in here
Yeah.
tonight.
Modern technology.
Yes.
Yes, exactly.
Sure is.
So long. Okay, item 8 on the agenda is the acceptance of, I'm going to butcher her last name, Tara Cruzino, donation to the Milton Substance Abuse Prevention Coalition. And apparently this person is a PhD and donated a $500 speaking fee to the...
Very generous.
Yeah, very
Yes.
generous.
I'll move that we accept a donation in the amount of $500 from Tara Cusino, Ph.D., to the Milton Substance Abuse Prevention Coalition.
I'll second that.
Motion made and seconded. Other than thank you very much, any further discussion? Seeing none, all's in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Okay, item 9 in the agenda. We're flying through this. It's the approval of the DPW joint salt bid. And apparently what this is, well, we put the salt out to bid, but then typically select all the bidders, just in case, so first you use the lowest bidder, and but just in case they can't supply, you go to the next bidder. So,
Okay. Okay, so I'll make a motion to approve a contract for de-icing salt between the town of Milton and Eastern Minerals for solar salt and calcium chloride at a unit cost of $65.80 per ton delivery between the town of Milton and Mid-American Salt Solar Salt and calcium chloride at a unit cost of $66.91 per ton delivery, and between the Town of Milton and Morton Salt for calcium chloride at $68.80 per ton delivery, and to authorize the town administrator to sign and related documents on the board's behalf.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded. Just one question. What is solar salt? Anybody have any idea? Not that it really matters much. I'm just curious. Never heard the term before. You know what calcium
You know,
chloride
that's
is?
the first time I've heard it as well, and I have to assume it has to do with the sun and the melting, so,
Oh, maybe that, yeah, good point. Okay, I'll buy that.
yeah.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all's in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. Okay, item 10 on the agenda is the approval of the comment letter to Massport FAA and the Logan CAC, which is through its 15th iteration, but I think we have something that's
That's
acceptable
right.
to everybody.
Yeah, a lot of versions on this one. Sometimes that happens. Well, everyone has the latest draft, which is in final form, I think, so fingers crossed.
Yep.
I just wanted to thank a few people who had some input onto this.
Sure.
Cindy Christensen, who's our CAC rep, who provided a lot of the technical data and who suggested this to us in the first place, that this is really about the BLANS, the Boston Logan Airport Noise Study. And she identified some problems with that study and had asked a month or so ago that we put together a letter that would inform Massport, the FAA, and the CAC. The CAC is the community advisory committee that she serves on, to identify what some of these problems are and ask them to address them. So we have a lot of input from Cindy Christensen into this letter. We also had some input from Mr. Gene Brown, who is still a resident of the town and is a former CAC representative many years ago for Milton. And he still monitors this issue very closely and
Yes.
provided a lot of good data that's in point 9.
Yeah, you had research for the 15 or 20-day period from in
Yeah, it was a
September?
40-day period.
40-day period in September.
And that was a period of time where we were getting a lot of
Yeah.
complaints. The airplane noise was particularly bad during that period of time while the study was going on. So he provided some very helpful information.
He's
I think
been-
that's almost the key part of the letter.
Yeah, he's been collecting data since 1978 as well, which is
Yes.
incredibly
It's amazing.
impressive, you know,
It's interesting.
how committed he is to that project.
He is. So we want to thank him for his input into this, as well as a lot of people who gave some comments and who reviewed this for us. Members of the airplane committee, the co-chairs of the grassroots group, the Boston Fair Skies, reviewed it. I think a couple of members of the Board of Health are on the airplane noise committee, so I think they've had some input into it. But a number of people worked on this letter, and we should, hopefully we'll get it signed tonight, and we'll get it in before the next CAC meeting, which is Thursday night.
Yeah, and specifically thank you for all the work that you put on, Katie.
Yeah, it was a lot of work.
Thank you.
It was a lot of work.
It was a team effort, so it was, and I know all of you commented on it and saw version after version, so I think it's a good result, and it raises a lot of important points that we should bring to the attention of
I
the
think it was a
FAA.
nice collaborative through a number of people who got involved on this effort to put a document forward that I think will serve the town of Milton in its best interests on these issues.
Yeah,
I
I
agree.
think so. So I'll move that we approve and sign the letter to Massport, the Federal Aviation Administration, and the Logan Community Advisory Committee regarding the BLANS, Boston Logan Airport Noise Study.
I'll second that.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all's in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. Okay, item 11 is the town administrator report.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I do have a department head meeting tomorrow morning, Ms. Conlon, and at that meeting, I plan to share the 5-year financial forecast with them.
Oh,
So
okay.
that's...
why
I
Jack
did
hadn't
invite
fully
them.
heard about it.
Yes.
I did invite them last week to the selectmen's meeting, but did tell them if they couldn't make it, that we would also be discussing it at the department head.
And some of them were
meeting
there
on the
last
10th.
week, which was
That's
good.
correct.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Right.
And I am going to try and make that meeting as well, at least for the beginning part of it, if not the whole thing.
And the only other thing I would like to remind everybody about is this Wednesday, Veterans Day services, November 11th. These services will start at 11 a.m. At the Milton High School, Gow Road, and the participants will march down to Town Hall where the dedication will take place. We're a little concerned because the weather for Wednesday
Rain
is
and wind.
rain. So we are going to have to make the call tomorrow around noon time whether or not the services would change and the parade may be canceled, and we may either do it in the foyer of Town Hall, or if we can arrange with the cemetery, we might get their tents and we'll be able to do it out on the gazebo under the tents. So stay tuned to the Town Milton website. We'll get it up there as soon as possible, get it out under public notices so people will know whether or not the parade will in fact take place.
It seems like a possibility there might not be a lot of rain,
Let's hope.
but there could be a lot of wind.
Yeah, high wind.
Barbara Martin, your employee in your office, has done a lot of work on this Veterans Day observance, so I really do hope that the parade does come to fruition.
She
Yeah,
did a great
yeah.
job on the Memorial Day
She
one as
does,
well, so
yes.
she's been a real asset.
Yes, and that's it.
Okay. Chairman report, I really don't have anything to report, other than, I'll talk about future agenda items. Do a few things I want to see get on that, but I do want to congratulate David for running the Monster Dash.
Oh, jeez.
Couple.
I'll tell you, they had a great turnout.
It looks like they did.
You know, it's amazing how committed those volunteers, and they do that for the Milton Foundation for Education.
Yeah,
and,
it raises a lot of money.
It raises a lot of money, and there's a lot of goodwill.
The kids have a
blast. And the adults do too. They dress up, and
Yep.
it just, it really jives pretty well.
I do have to tell you though, my selectman record still holds by, I think it's 16 seconds.
Oh, you have it? No.
24 minutes, 46 seconds.
I don't know if I have anything more than what I gave this year, Tom, so I think it might stay intact for a long, long time, you know?
This is a very competitive board, to be honest.
Yeah, yeah, well, I don't think there's anything to worry about, Tom. You know, I was struggling when I saw a 9-year-old in front of me just blazing by me. I said, I think I've
It's
hit
that hill at
of
the
road.
end that kills you.
Sure does. It was a lot of fun.
Okay, members' reports?
Just congratulations once again to the Milton High football team. I
Yes.
just, you know, I went to the game and I saw people from all ages, you know, people who had moved into town, who had only been here for a few years, and it's just an incredible showing of town pride. And I think we're very thankful that this team is paving the way. And,
Yes.
and I think that this Friday night should be even extra special to take on Duxbury.
Yes. Yeah, Duxbury's number 3 in the state according to the Herald poll.
Yeah, and as I said to you earlier, expect a long game because both teams pass
That's
a lot. So.
yeah. I know Milton does, yeah.
Yeah. And their quarterback at Duxbury has 28 touchdown passes. So,
Wow.
so he and Fallon are the 2 leaders in Division III. So I get those stats from Eddie Baker. So,
Okay.
yeah.
He's the expert.
He sure is.
I don't really have a report, but I did want to bring something up that I thought might be appropriate. You know, Thayer Nursery recently had an issue with its holiday fair.
Yes.
And all 3 of us, Tom, you were there, you spoke to the Board of Appeals, David and I submitted letters. Mainly I wanted to thank Joe Prondak because, you know, unfortunately, and this is going to get me into something for future agenda items, but there's a lot of misinformation on Facebook and on social media.
Yep.
And it's unfortunate because something will get posted and then a lot of comments pop up, and sometimes people are well-intentioned when they put comments on Facebook, but they don't always have the facts. And there were a lot of comments about the building commissioner, Joe Prondak, that this might be personal, vendetta, or that he was not acting within the scope of his authority. A lot of comments that just were very critical of Joe. And I thought that I wasn't at the zoning board meeting, but I watched the tape of it. And I thought Chairman John Leonard really made a good point in saying that the building commissioner is the first line of defense for the Board of Appeals on zoning. So, Joe, you said this, Tom, at the Board of Appeals, but I think it's important to say it at our meeting as well. Joe Prondak was in a difficult spot when he got that request for the holiday fair and the craft sale, because there's a lot of litigation pending between Thayer and the abutters, and the town is a party to some of that litigation, and he was doing his job.
Right.
And he consults with town council, especially on matters relating to Thayer, because of all of the litigation. And, you know, again, he was in a difficult spot, he was doing his job. I think there was a good result at the Board of Appeals, and that was the proper avenue. All of us got inundated with probably a couple of dozen people asking us to overturn it. It wasn't
Which we had
before
no
us at all, we
authority
had
to.
no role in the
We
matter.
don't have an
But
authority
again,
to
this
do
is misinformation that's out there on Facebook. The Board of Appeals, you know, I think we're so lucky to have Chairman John Leonard and the other members of this panel. It was Jeffrey Mullen and Ted Daber. And they really spent a lot of time on this. Thayer's attorney came in and presented issues about agritourism, which is a whole new
Right,
concept.
Yeah, exactly.
It was a very interesting concept. They brought up Dover Amendment issues. It wasn't, I think anyone,
cut and
if
dry,
you
yeah.
just read social media, you'd really be confused as to what this was all about. And it was a much more complicated situation than what anyone would believe if that's your sole source of information. So I just wanted to thank Joe Prondak and the Board of Appeals. The abutters agreed that they would not object to this holiday fair taking place. So all around, it was a good outcome.
Yeah.
But the process was followed, and the process worked, and that's a good thing.
Absolutely.
I agree.
Yep.
There was also some discussion at the Board of Appeals about how this would impact future years. And they were only ruling, I guess we'll have to wait until we see their actual written ruling, but they were only giving relief for this particular December. But there was some talk at the meeting about whether the planning board or whether maybe there'd be a town meeting article that might address this in the future. So I don't know if that's something that we might need to think about
Yeah.
or talk with the planning board about if there's any.
If there's any
issue that we
because
need
it's
to
kind of one
address.
of those things, I can understand it's a business if it's operating every day. If it's
Right.
operating once or twice on a specific event, then,
Well,
I mean,
it goes to like the other celebrations we have in town as well.
right,
Almost like they're one-time celebrations. And so, yeah, it would be worth a conversation, I think, with the planning board to discuss,
Yeah.
certain criteria to these types of events.
right. I mean, Thayer could always try and get it into its special permit, but over and above that, I mean, it's probably something that the planning board should think about, or,
Well, it might just be something to follow up with them. I think we
Yeah.
need to wait to see what the written decision from the Board of Appeals says,
Yep.
but there may be some follow-up there. And they brought it up, so that's why I'm just indicating that we
Yep.
should think about it.
okay, citizen speak responses, we had no citizen speak today, so. Future agenda items, one thing, and we've got to tie it down, there's been talk of a January special town meeting. If that's going to happen, we've got to get that on an agenda to open and close a warrant pretty soon. We haven't heard back, I don't know when the planning board is
I think they're
ready.
meeting tonight, aren't they? Planning board?
Yeah.
Maybe it's on their agenda for tonight.
And there probably will be a citizen petition on there as well. I've heard from Ned Clark, and he plans to submit a citizen petition on zoning,
Okay.
which will mean more public, so 2 public hearings by the planning board. That's a lot to put on an agenda, but hopefully we can pull it off by then.
I'll follow up tomorrow with the chair of the
Okay.
planning board and see where they are.
Any other future agenda items you can think of?
Yeah, I have a few, well, I don't want to interrupt you.
Well, pilot is one.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I think that
Yep.
we ought to
We've been
follow up
saying
on that, and, I've had some nice discussions with Chairman Bennett and also Jim Henderson, and I want to speak to Brian Cronin as well, but, to kind of follow through on their report and start to make a little bit of headway on that.
Yep, absolutely.
The 2 that I had were going along with the town meeting, not for the January special town meeting, but early January is the deadline for submitting warrant articles for the May town meeting.
Yes.
So we need to probably think about having a future agenda item for November or December as to whether articles that we want to
Yes.
submit. And there's a couple anyway that, obviously, we kind of have a discussion about them tonight, but let me just mention what they are. We could put it on for an agenda. At different times, we've had complaints from residents about construction projects starting at 6 a.m., 7 a.m., and there's no bylaw in town that
Right.
governs the starting time. So I think we might want to think about a bylaw that addresses hours for construction projects. And then the other one was, in October, we had a bylaw that addressed it was a housekeeping article, but it addressed the police chief screening committee process.
Yes.
We talked about having an article with the fire chief. Since then, I've talked with someone who indicated that maybe a bylaw is not required for another specific position, but maybe there should be something, whether it's a policy for the new strong town administrator, which could be enacted very shortly, for hiring all department heads. So I think we should
That
put
probably
that
makes
on an
more sense,
agenda
yeah.
to think
Yeah,
about and
that
talk
probably
about
makes more sense.
Yeah, I
which
think
of
so,
those ways
too.
we want to go.
The other thing in terms of future article, and probably more for the January than the annual, is considering a a stormwater municipality, stormwater
Utility.
utility fund, which would be a, what do you call it, same as a water and sewer, enterprise fund. Especially when we're going into and we've got all those unfunded mandates and, no way to fund them in a non-contingent budget. It may be worthwhile looking at if we can figure out a way to do it fairly and.
Yeah, so that we should put on for an agenda to talk about that. The only other one that I had, and this is one that I wanted to bring up, and this is an idea that I got from Frank Schroth, who used to run the My Town Matters website. He suggested to me that we might want to consider the town administrator putting out, and I've talked with Anne Marie about this just to alert her that this might be coming, and similar to the school superintendent putting out an email blast that gives updates and news information. The town might want to consider doing that on the town side. I think it's probably a bigger challenge on the town side because schools have been doing this for a long time. They have a lot of experience, and it would be new on this side, but it also would be from a lot of departments that have different functions and different purposes. So I think it's something that would take a little while to get going. I think if we put it on an agenda maybe for December, we could target sometime in the new year. If we decide to roll it out, the target could be sometime in the new year.
I think that follows up on one of our goals on communication.
Right.
As a board, as a town, to start getting information out and find efficient ways to do so that residents do know some of the facts on certain issues versus having to turn to social media and getting half of the facts.
Yep.
And then, you gave a perfect example with Joe Prondak tonight, So I think that that's a great idea. I think that it's one that we should put on a future agenda item and really vet and find out how we can, in fact, come up with a deliberate system that educates residents on what is truly happening. And if they have questions, they can then submit them to get an answer. And obviously, I think that using a website as well for a Q&A and facts is going to be helpful.
Well,
Yeah.
our website, I don't think we utilize it, but it does have a...
Public notice section.
Yes, that will generate, wish people sign up with their email address, because that's going to be the biggest problem
It's a
for an email
listserv.
blast is to collect 10,
Exactly.
12,000 emails.
Yeah, it's a
gonna take a while to
listserv.
build it
The
up.
department
We
that I
can
ran in
really do it.
Westwood, we did that, and we had that run pretty well. So it can be done very effectively, and people get, whether it's a daily or a weekly notice of information, and it's very effective.
Yeah, and I think part of the problem is we're now in the Milton Times is a weekly publication. We used to have the My Town Matters site, which was it was updated daily and included a lot of news, commentary as well, but it was mainly news and reporting on meetings. And there's a void now with that going on a daily basis. There is a new site, the Milton Scene, but that's getting started. So it would at least help us put some information out rather than just people relying on either if they happen to get those public notices or relying on social media, which again has just an awful lot of misinformation.
Sure.
So Frank suggested that to me, and I thought it was a good idea and worth bringing for us to talk about it
I
at
agree.
maybe one of the
Yeah.
December or January meetings.
And the other thing is, speaking of social media, just to reach out to residents to sign up for the town's Facebook page, which is tremendously undersubscribed.
Yeah.
If it has 300 subscribers to it, that's probably a lot.
I think we have a town that has so much going on, whether it be in building or whether it be, in planning, and whether it be through, sports or just daily, activities that, I think at some point in time, we're going to have to look at a communications kind of director or
Yes.
in some capacity.
Yep.
Where people want information, they want it now. And I think that, we're in the year 2015 and, they work off of handheld devices, and I think that we're going to get to that point, and I think that, having a good discussion about it, I think we'll come up with some
Yep.
pretty good, solid, answers as to where we can go from this.
Right. Yeah, speaking of which, the handheld device thing too, it's the new thing now in websites is to make sure that your website actually shows up on a handheld device properly. And I'm willing to bet that ours doesn't.
Ours is awful.
Yeah. It's not navigable, and so.
Great.
Okay.
Okay, I guess we're at item 16, the adjournment. So I'll take a motion. to
Short
adjourn.
meeting tonight.
It was.
This is a difference.
Well, it was good to fill in. you know,
Well, we were supposed to
we
have this meeting
decided,
because it was supposed to be a joint meeting with the Board of Health, but they
Right,
couldn't
so that's
join
what made
us,
it
so.
shorter, yes.
Right.
So at least we
to
got
do a couple budgets.
some budgets off of next
got
week
some
and
of
on to
that,
tonight.
Yeah,
Good.
I'll move to adjourn.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion made second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, we are adjourned.